Good afternoon, Tansi, Huyamora, Huyamera, bonsoir. What other languages do I know? That's it. I said Tansi, right? Anyways, yeah, Tansi. Hello, hi. Welcome to Conversations with Artists. My name is Vuyo Kinenza. I am happy to be with you. This entire production is courtesy of Sask Music. I am joined by the lovely, the amazing 6figguh, and we will be having conversations with artists celebrating Black History Month. Now, on a technical basis, Black History Month was last month. However, Michael B. Jordan just won Best Actor at the SAG Awards. So we, as a congregation of Black people, of African people, the whole nation, we have decided it is Black History Month the entire year. We have now entered Melanated March. Yes, sir. And we're not asking for permission, as per Delro Lindo's words. So welcome to Conversations with Artists. Happy to have you join us. A bit about 6figguh. Real name, Feechi Onyenali Mgbeoduru. I tried, I beg. Known artistically as 6figguh, is a Canadian rapper, lyricist, and performer based in Regina, Saskatchewan. Originally from Nigeria's Garden City, shout out to all my Nigerians, 6figguh is carving out a distinct lane in Canada's hip-hop landscape through music that blends cerebral lyricism with social commentary, drawing influence from experimental music, battle rap, and introspective poetry. 6figguh creates work that speaks to the experience of being misread, misunderstood, or mentally overstimulated in an increasingly loud world. Tracks like RBF, Resting B-Face, and the epic Abuse Is Contagious showcase his balance of dark humor, vulnerability, and literary edge, earning praise for both their depth and their live performances. Beyond music, 6figguh is interested in expanding visibility for Saskatchewan and seeing creative support become more accessible to residents across the province. His debut album reflects his commitment to adding another dimension to Saskatchewan artistry while staying authentic. Listen here. Now, for those of you who say you've got bios, please match this energy, okay? This is a bio, not those 2 sentences you'll be sending me. Anywho, side note, 6figguh, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, man?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, I'm curious, as I imagine others are. Tell us about what inspired the name 6figguh.
6figguh, okay. So 6figguh was like a few years ago, when I got into Jay-Z. I started listening to Jay-Z a bit more. I was just listening to hip-hop, coming up with a name. And originally I had some other name, which was just like my initials and stuff. And then I was like, that's not going to fly. I wasn't really feeling it, So then I listened to Blueprint, which is like one of Jay-Z's album, Blueprint too. And then got into Jay-Z, and then Jigga. From there came Figure. And then
Okay.
And then the 6 was the only thing that could go in front of that. So
Jay-Z, if you're watching, if you ever see this, here's your number 1 fan. Okay, that actually bleeds into my follow-up question, which would have been, growing up, what was your first exposure to hip-hop and who was your favorite rapper? I'm going to assume it's Jay-Z.
Nah, Jay-Z.
Okay. You still love Jay-Z though, but yes,
sure,
who was your favorite rapper?
My favorite rapper, my first exposure to hip hop was with there's a movie that's called Let It Shine back in 2013. I think that's when it came out.
The Disney movie?
The Disney movie.
Oh God, I feel ancient. Okay, yes, continue.
Yeah, right, it makes you time flies. So I was like, when the movie came out, we're all in high school, year 5, and we're all just doing back and forth, doing getting into rap battles and stuff like that. And then that was kind of where I wrote my first rhymes and everything. I had been doing poetry ever since, but then this was the first time I wrote a rap, battle rap and stuff. And then I just kept writing. And my first favorite rapper was probably maybe Eminem also, when Not Afraid dropped.
Fair. Why?
Around that time. Why? That was the first person I was exposed to. I liked his style, that was, I didn't have a lot of music per se, but I had personal music. I had what's it called, radio stuff, listening to stuff on the radio, and Eminem was all over the radio, in when he dropped Relapse, or what's it called, Recovery. He dropped Not Afraid, Love the Way You Lie, those kind of songs, also some people in Nigeria, basically Olamide was one of the first rappers that, I love his style because he was unique, you know. There was nobody, he wasn't sounding like anybody was sounding, and he was like saying stuff that, you know, you could picture, stuff you could understand and stuff like,
so like, was he rapping in pidgin and stuff?
Rapping in pidgin, rapping in Yoruba. I was understanding more so the pidgin. You know, I picked up a bit of Yoruba, so I'm getting a bit of what he's saying as well in Yoruba too. So.
Got you. So I'm before I move on to my next question, I'm curious about the battle rapping in Garden City. Sounds like it was a bit of a big thing. What? Just take me through that journey. When did you first get the courage to decide that I'm going to step into the ring as a rapper and battle rap someone? Because it seems like a bit of a rite of passage for someone who calls himself a rapper. So what's your earliest memory of first finding the courage of stepping into the ring as a battle rapper?
Yeah, this was something that we were basically doing for fun. Like, remember, this was like back in like primary school, like elementary, 5th grade, you know, and we also had 6th grade. So that was just like something like monkey see, monkey do, you know. Then you're a kid, anything you see on TV, you want to try it, like, you know. So then we got that movie, and then we just started like writing stuff against each other. I had stuff I wanted to say to people, which, you know, you wouldn't want to just say. If you said it then, you would get in trouble.
Wahala.
Yeah, exactly, or you could get like expelled or something. So, well, if you put it in a rhyme, it's now permissible. So that was something that I enjoyed about like battle rapping. We never really did it as like a sport. We did it in like maybe like high school. We did a few bars here and there, but nobody was really good, you know, because we're all just like 12-year-olds and something.
And then whoever has the hardest bar. Oh, that vibe? Okay.
Yeah.
Bed. Okay, so as a Nigerian Canadian, what influences does your culture and background have on your music and your perspectives?
Sure. So as a like Nigerian Canadian, so I'm a Nigerian, originally from Nigeria, you know, so I have, you know, the perspective from somebody who grew up in Nigeria. You know, if I don't have the perspective of somebody who grew up like in the streets, I've seen people who grew up in the streets, you know what I mean? I've seen people who grew up rich, people who grew up poor, people who grew up all sorts of places, and all the dynamics of like, you know, somebody, the mentality of different people. Or I've watched a movie about it or something, you know, and then Canada just doubles that, because then I've also seen a bit of that with my time here. You know, you know, I'm an international student too, so I also see how life goes for people who are like temporary residents, see the difference in like between living as a temporary resident, living as permanent resident, you know.
Having your papers, not having your papers.
Having your papers, not having, waiting for your papers, rules changing and stuff like that, and observing and tension and stuff like that. So that reality and, you know, everything like that in between. So I guess that's been my perspective as well.
Beautiful, beautiful response. Thank you for that. Now, I want to dig a bit deeper into your music and your lyrics. On your song, Resting P-Face, you know what B means, I can't say it on camera. Resting P-Face, you state, and I quote, "Resting P-Face, it only makes one harder." And later in the song, you also state, "It's eating me up. I wasn't giving a heck, but it's beginning to mess me up." Now, as a black man, as an African, living in a country where you are not the majority, have you found that your race influences how people perceive and interact with you?
Yeah, I mean, in some regards, yeah, as far as my race goes, you know, it has its benefits and it has its disbenefits as well. You know, some people really like Nigerians, some people really like black people, like really, really like, and then they be like, oh my God, like he's black, like I'll bend over backwards for him. And, you know, and some people like, you know, are obviously the opposite, you know, have some racist encounters here and there and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, as far as like approaching some people, it's either here nor there. It could just, you never know, right? It depends on the person and how they decide to see race or something like so.
So, just kind of going off of the cuff here, have you ever felt, because I'm assuming the song was inspired by your own personal experience.
Yeah.
Now, just context. For those of you who don't know what a resting bee face is, it's when in your most neutral state, you have a face that people might assume to be maybe unapproachable, or you don't look friendly, or whatever the case is. Nothing anyone can control. It's just you either have a resting bee face or you don't. Anyways, assuming that this song was about you and your experience having a resting bee face, did you feel like, have you found that it's been difficult for people to connect with you regardless of race, or is it just something you've learned to live with and you just have a small circle of friends and that's just it?
Right. So with that, like, exactly, like, I'm glad that you brought race into it, because I think that, like, it's a concept that actually, like, transcends race. Like, it's something that is not just restricted to, let's say, black people, or just restricted to your skin color, because it's just like, facial expression, and then it's basically the song is talking about how, like, that can, because there's a line there that says something like, had your first encounter, and hindered by something like that, by your face or something like that. And then it's like talking about how that can even prevent you from even getting opportunities in the first place, because it's like, how it is in Nigeria too. It's like, oh, that one that always frowns, that one that always is never smiling, that kind of thing. So, and then people won't even want to approach you, like that kind of thing. So that's basically the dynamic that that's speaking into. Like, it's talking about how it just makes it then makes it hard for one to socialize, but it's not like an intentional thing. And then it's like, obviously to the point of where it's like, oh, just smile more, just, be more emotive, or like something like that, like be more emotion, show more emotion or something, or put more. And then it's like, that's just tiring. So even, it's exhausting. It's really, like, it's exhausting, like having to put in so much effort just to, it's like, it's now to the point where it's like, I can't stress, like, it's like, so it's that vibe of like, oh, well, if whoever is going to approach you will approach you. If they're not going to approach you, they won't approach you. If you see Bill Gates and he's not smiling, like, then you're still going to approach him to ask him for money or ask him for an opportunity.
Yeah.
If you want to. If you don't want to, then, you're not going to. So you can't stress, like,
Definitely. So you kind of answered my follow-up question, so I'm going to improvise for a moment. Now, the nature of hip-hop is that it requires one to have a fair amount of bravado and confidence and just an authority, especially if you're going to if you're stepping into uh, a battle ring, or just stepping into a room in general. Just as a person yourself within your own journey, what has it been? I want to make sure I phrase this correctly. How have you been able to observe how your confidence has grown from when you first decided to become an artist to where you are now, having released a few songs that are now streaming for everyone to hear and enjoy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as far as like that, like, it's just, what I do is like, it's not, if you can't be confident, then, you just, at least don't be doubtful, don't be scared. Like, don't really put too much weight on it. Like, I go for stuff like open mics and stuff like that, open mics, putting out a song. And there's nothing like that's happened. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You're not going to like, well, get like, deported or something because you made a song, or nobody's going to like, you know what I mean? It's just self-expression, and what's the price of if you don't do it? Because you have this dream, like, you have this fantasy or whatever, oh, okay, put out my song, maybe a few people like it, it reaches the ears of like, I don't know, imagine something like Rakim was to hear my song or something, like, that would be crazy. So, but if you don't do it, then, that kind of logic, like if you don't do it, then there's no chance and you will die with that dream, like you will die with that, whatever. So that's just what I think sometimes when I have like second thoughts. It's not like I'm really like extremely like confident or like some kind of bravado, this thing, extraordinary or something, but it's like, what if I don't? Like, if I do, what happens? Nothing bad happens, but something good could happen. I've had a few good opportunities come through. You hear those words of encouragement, something like that, when you put out your work and people like feel it and like, oh, I like this, or oh, I can relate to this, If you don't, you don't get anything. So,
And as it pertains to words of encouragement, I know most, as an artist myself, most people, most Africans, most Black people, but anyone in general, but as it pertains to us, will relate to the experience of having a dream that doesn't follow the regular path that is expected. And in most cases, you are met with resistance from people closest to you, namely your family, your parents, who, out of fear of the instability that comes with the life of being an artist, might advise you against it. How what has your experience been navigating that? Were your parents supportive at the onset? Did they become fans now of your music. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, I'm still going through that journey. So, um, what it's been like you said, like it's those doubts or those fears of like, oh well, you'll do music and then you leave school or you like become a druggie or something or a dreadhead or something. You know, it's like also right now my main focus right now is basically just like school and like trying to get a job, trying to get a stable job, not just any job, trying to get a good job, so I can handle things for myself, more. I've been doing that, but like, trying to also still stay on that path, because once like maybe you're like spending more on the music than you're making, bro, nobody's like, not even forget the fact that you're black or anything or that they're black. Nobody's really going to take you seriously, and nobody wants to be affiliated with that kind of thing. But that part I can control. If it's something like, let's say, just because of conservatism, because we're very conservative back home. Oh, you know. Somebody has some ideology that, oh, rapping is just inherently bad or rapping is of the devil. I don't really give ear to those kind of things. Like, I just, like, I don't know what you're saying. But I can see your logic if you're saying something like, okay, yeah, you should finish school and you should get a job, like, you should be in a stable position before you chase that dream or whatever. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that because I too kind of similar to you. That the country I come from is called Eswatini. Shout out to my people. And the arts are not, at least when I was growing up. Now it's a different chat. But growing up, acting was just not even considered a thing at all. And when I first came to Canada, I just assumed that, oh, I'm gonna go to Canada, I'll get my degree in acting, and then Eva DuVernay, Ryan Coogler, they'll be here. They'll be calling me like this, and as much as that may happen one day, I've come to discover that yes, having a dream is important, but you still need to keep yourself afloat somehow financially. And so yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about that perspective. I want to move on to a different song. Abuse is Contagious. It is a beautiful song that when I listened to it, seemingly addressed suicide and depression. What motivated you to write that song?
Abuse is Contagious is like a song that I wrote, like, it's a concept that I had. First of all, like, usually the concept just comes and then you pen it down. Like, it's a concept I had from watching this series that was like the 10 greatest or 10 most legendary serial killers in America. And so from that, I basically, I watched that, binged that show, and then like I just started to like, see, okay, all these, they hear about the narrator and how they're talking about how old this kid was abused when he was younger. And then that led them to become, go on his killing spree or something like that. That, they had showed early signs of it and everything, how abusing one person causes another person to get abused. So that was kind of the foundation of Abuse is Contagious.
That's a beautiful, beautiful answer. Thank you. There was a time when discussing mental health, especially for men, was considered a sign of weakness. Why do you think it is especially important for the conversation to happen in general, but specifically for men to be in these conversations and leading these conversations?
Right. For men specifically, like there are a lot of like expectations typically in like in a, let's say, a patriarchal society or something. Like there are a lot of expectations put on men or whoever is the dominant figure in it. Like let's say for women in a matriarchal society, there are a lot of pressures, and everybody should be able to like discuss about what they're going through. It's a foundational thing. Like, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is how I'm. And then you get to find out. Because the more you talk about it, the more research that they can do about it, the more discovery there is, the more data there is to work with and like find that this is a problem and then this is a solution. So if you don't talk about it, there's not going to be enough dots to connect. Like, there's not going to be enough data to even work with to like make research and stuff like that. So that's why it's important. Another reason is like on a personal level, if you don't talk about it, you're probably going to implode like from holding in too much. And yeah, nobody wants that, So it's just better to be involved, and you can't have the conversation without somebody who is who is the subject of the conversation. So that's why it's important for whoever to be involved in.
Great, great. And I'm also just wondering, have you seen, can I assume we're the same age? I'm 27. How old are you?
22.
22. Okay. Yeah. So same generation, maybe. But at least when you compare socially, or just when you compare society and conversations of things like mental health when you were growing up versus now, do you think we've made progress? And also culturally speaking, there's, it's one thing to grow up in your country and there are experiences there and society may move differently that side. And then you come and live in a different country and maybe you find other immigrants who are from the same place you are, or maybe other Nigerians who've grown up here and maybe with a different perspective. Do you feel that in the space of time from maybe say a few years ago to now, do you feel like there has been progress in the conversation we're having about mental health? Or do you still think we have a ways to go?
I think there's been some progress, I think that at least in the awareness aspect, there are some words that are coming out from people's mouths that you wouldn't hear, like something like depression. Back home, depression is not a word. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like that. Like you're just you'll find some other word like to ASD, somebody's autistic, or like
evil spirit.
It's an evil spirit, exactly. So, some people are becoming aware that these things are like, conditions that can be managed, can be treated without extreme measures. Mm. Like, I think that's one thing, like the awareness is definitely there. And some people, I've met some people who are also, just the more, that's basically like the awareness, because being aware, and some people are aware of it, some people who are ignorant will always like be ignoring and just even, I'm aware you have it, I don't really care, like, Another effect that I've seen that's interesting is like somebody just, maybe like people who have like come and start diagnosing people. That's a way that we've like, you're more aware that there's something, but now you're diagnosing people and trying to force a solution on them or something while you're not actually qualified to do that.
Expert with no expertise.
Exactly. So that's another effect. That's a way we've like backslided or not. Yeah.
Got you. So I'm curious, what song do you listen to whenever you're going through something heavy in your life?
And I mostly listen to like, Eminem or like Tupac, but like maybe something like 7 Years, 7 Years by Lucas Graham. Something,
beautiful song.
Exactly, something like a, that's song I'm blanking now. Phil Collins, he has that, or Dolly Parton,
My respect for you is increasing. You said Phil Collins. Not many people would know who he is.
Phil Collins, Dolly Parton, like those kind of people, like basically people I listened to growing up. So that's why I'm exposed. Or like,
Got you. My go-to is usually it's Patti LaBelle. Somebody loves you, baby. Shout out to Miss LaBelle. So moving on, what do you wish you knew about being an artist before you became one?
So I wish I knew. As far as like, let's say the business part, like, things like you have to be consistent, but like you really have to, especially being an independent artist, you really have to like plan a lot, like, and have a lot of foresight, like, because let's say you're planning even something as simple as like an album release, like if you want to just be chill and release it, that's fine. But if you're like planning things like, okay, I want to release an album, you may just get carried away, like, and not be specific and not have any like deadlines or any thresholds or any points, like you need to, like, for me, I feel like I need to like plan and say, okay, I want it by so date or so range of time. If not, you just have like an empty canvas and it's to roll and you keep on rolling and never like, and then marking like accomplishments and stuff, like, I'm marking thresholds, especially for example, now I'm looking at like a lot of grants and stuff. Recently, I discovered something like, that there are things called grants for artists, which is pretty cool. But like, I discovered that I also wasn't like eligible for a lot of them. So what I did before when I would see opportunities is like, I would just be like, well, I'm not eligible, so screw the world, like, But now I'm like, it's like a different approach of like, okay, well, I'm not eligible, but if I do this and do this and do this, I can also be eligible for any opportunity, even if it's like applying for a festival. You can apply it in any kind of thing, any part of the world, so any part of life. So yeah, just trying to mark those thresholds. What do I need to do to make myself to put myself into that position where I'm eligible for something?
Beautiful answer. You also, most people, I don't think I've ever heard a response like this of marking your accomplishments, because I think I've had this experience where for a while, people, when people ask what do you do for a living, you say, oh no, I work here, I work at Cornwall Center, I do this. But there was a time when I was afraid to say, oh no, I'm an actor. Yeah. And like that is an actual profession. Not that it's a side hustle, I'm doing it only in the evenings, which I do. But actually being able to say with my chest that, no, I am an actor and I do this, because this is the thing that's important to me. I think that's a very important thing of, as you said, marking your accomplishments, and a milestone is a milestone. And at some point when you get to where you're going, it's beautiful to look back and see, oh, I started here by SoundCloud and now Juno Awards. I'm manifesting for you, receive it.
Amen.
Amen. So, what advice do you have for people out there who want to become artists?
Who want to become artists? I would say basically, just, enjoy it. Always remind yourself, I guess, of why you started, don't sell out, or don't pressure yourself. Nobody's really worth pressuring yourself over. Nothing is really worth pressuring yourself. I always think of it like this. Let's say something like, if I'm thinking, oh, what if I release this song? What would this person say? I'm like, well, it might sound a bit sadistic, but like, what if this person passes on tomorrow? Let's put it lightly. Then there'll be I'll look for some other excuse. Oh, but what if this other person? Are you going to wait until everybody passes on? Some people are just like that, or some situations are just like that. You're waiting for something to pass and then it never does, So it's better sometimes just do that thing that's on your mind, sometimes, with wisdom, not senselessly, but with wisdom.
Yeah, cool. I got you. A few more questions before I let you go. I'm just out of curiosity. I feel that art serves three purposes. Either to make people feel less alone, so you could share about, sing or rap about something you're going through, and make someone else feel like, oh wait, I've been through that. Yeah. So art could either be used to make people feel less alone. Yeah. You could use your art to speak to what's happening, socially speaking, or it could just be an escape, an opportunity for people to forget about their own personal problems or problems of the world or whatever the case is. Do you think that artists are obligated to always speak on what is happening socially, whether it's socially or politics, or do you think that an artist can just be whatever? And if the song happens to be political, cool. But if the song happens to just be about having fun at a club, doing leg work and shaku shaku, that's fine as well. What do you feel?
It depends on what you're going for, right? I guess, I don't feel anybody should force themselves, because I hate when something feels forced, or feels like, oh, okay, maybe now this event just happened. Now you want to, all of a sudden, you're now thinking about that kind of, anything that happened, you don't have any direction. You're just following trends or following what you're not, I think they should just make songs. I would like to see songs that are timeless, Some songs might be a genuine reaction to something, but in general, I don't know whether they have to speak on social things. Nobody has to. There's no obligation to do that, right? Because you may go and say something that doesn't even make sense. And what's that quote from Mark Twain against that? It's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and convince people that you're a fool. Confirm to people that you're a fool.
Hey, so confirmation.
It's better if you don't have anything to say. It's better just don't say anything.
Fair,
obligation.
Okay, cool. So like a few more questions before I let you go. Hope I'm not going over my limit of 30 minutes. Anyways, I'm just curious, are there any other artists you would like to work with? In the city, yeah, be it in the city, in the province, or just in Canada generally. Are there any other artists who you'd like to collaborate with? Either producers or other rappers or other singers, just anyone.
Yeah, I collaborate. I have like a regular collaborator that I work with, my friend VC Vibes. So yeah, John, we work on like stuff together, send each other beats and stuff. So he's like who I've been mainly collaborating with. I've reached out to some people. Some people say that, I don't know, like one guy told me that he's Christian or something. Like, so usually, and because he's Christian, he can't collaborate with me. So I usually get those kind of feedback, which is pretty funny. So I've not really gotten anybody who's like, I guess, my style or something, or who it just doesn't really flow. Like, it just hasn't flown. But I'm sure I'll find somebody, like, eventually. I do want to work. I'm not against it, but nobody in particular, like.
Cool, cool. All right. Final question before I let you go. Do you have any new projects on the horizon?
Yeah, I have my debut album that I just finished writing a few days ago.
Okay, can you tell us what it's called, or are you going to do like a surprise release Friday midnight? What can you tell us about it?
So I'm still working on like a name and everything, but I'm just trying to release it, I guess, before my birthday, probably before I'm 23, because that's another like goal I set, like, else. It's been in the work for years. It's going to be of that same vibe of like RBF, commentary and stuff like that, thought out lyrics, not just some fast food stuff, I want it to be something that's there for like the long stay, That's about the album.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure. Regina, Saskatchewan, the whole of Canada. Oh, by the way, as of the Super Bowl, it is officially Canada, not Canada, Canada. Please, thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much to 6figguh. Thank you for joining us. Wishing you all the best and looking forward. He has an album coming out soon. Please be sure to stay tuned. Thank you very much.